It's Patrick Lagreid from Halfwheel, and this is the SpaceX Starship torch, a lighter that was released by the same company that is actually sending rockets into space. Now, it was launched in April 2023 via SpaceX's online store with a price of $175 and an expectation to be shipped a few months later. That delivery date for us was December 18th, and in the meantime, a second batch was offered. Those went on sale November 2023. And they were slated to be released in Q2 of 2024. I don't know if they've actually been shipped, but what I do know is that this is not currently on sale on SpaceX's website. It's also not technically a cigar lighter, as the company markets it as a kitchen tool that can be used to toast marshmallows and make s'mores and creme brulee and all those kind of things. But its single large flame torch design is one that's being seen from cigar accessory makers as well, which made this pretty interesting. Not only for that, but because it's a spaceship, right? Now, it stands just under 10 inches tall, which is about 2 soda cans stacked on top of each other. It's a little more than 3.5 inches wide down here at its widest point, and it weighs a hefty 1.3 pounds, which is manageable, but certainly noticeable, and certainly heavier than a lot of cigar lighters you've probably used. Now, since the flame comes out of the bottom of the lighter, that moves the elements usually found there to other places. For instance, the flame adjuster is on the front of the lighter right here. It's a little slider mechanism. The fuel valve is tucked away underneath the nose cone, which you twist off, and you'll find your fuel valve right there. It also has a ignition block, which is right here. And if you slide it to the right, you'll see a little red dot. That means you cannot light the lighter, as you will see. And that is the ignition right there. Now, there are a few things to be aware of when using the Starship torch, particularly when it's been at rest for a while. The lighter has a tendency to accumulate butane, and if you ignite the lighter without releasing that gas, you'll be greeted and surprised by a rather big flame, regardless of what your flame adjuster is set at. I'm not exactly sure why this does this. My guess is something with the torch being on the bottom of the lighter and the required internals to make that happen. So my recommendation is pretty simple. Just use an extra slow lighting process. And you can hear that butane. That's actually really high. But that's what it sounds like. You let that butane go out and get sort of to its normal levels, and then you light the lighter just like that. All right. So speaking of the flame adjuster, the Starship torch will give you more than enough flame. You probably don't need to have it set more than about a quarter of the way up, at least if you're using it to light a cigar. Other stuff, well, that's up to you. One of the things I found really nice about this is that even if you have the flame adjuster set all the way down, it will still give you just a little bit of a flame. Probably just enough to light a cigar with or light something else with, but it's one of these things where it really does make the flame adjuster's range fully usable, which is not something you find on a lot of lighters. Now, in terms of usage, the SpaceX Starship torch has absolutely no trouble getting the job done. With the right setting, the flame is strong and focused, and like pretty much every lighter, there's no need to get this up near the base of your cigar. As I said, even at its lowest setting, there's probably enough flame to get a cigar lit, and to borrow from a term used in barbecue and some other forms of cooking, low and slow is the way to go when it comes to lighting your cigar. Now, the issue, if there is one, is the ergonomics. They're not bad. They're just sort of unique for a cigar lighter because the flame comes out of the bottom of the lighter. This is most notable when you want to take a couple of draws when lighting the cigar, as unless you're either more flexible than I am or probably stronger than I am, the angles just sort of don't work out, because when you're lighting a cigar, super easy, no problems there. But when you get to this point, being able to keep the ignition lit, your wrist from kind of bending in a funky way, and the weight of the lighter does make it a little awkward to take that final puff with the flame hitting the bottom of the cigar. So just something to keep in mind. It's not unmanageable, but as I said earlier, the torch is bulky, and the placement of the fins also sort of get in the way of kind of getting a good grip on it. Again, you can see, like, you get it lit and then kind of get into position, you can make it work. It's just something to keep in mind. Now, beyond that, though, the SpaceX Spaceship Torch is really about form, and whatever sort of attachment or interest someone has to either SpaceX or rockets or space exploration or even Elon Musk's companies, it's definitely an attention grabber when it's on the table, but as I constantly say, it won't make your cigar taste any better. Now, its retail price was $175, making it a premium price lighter, especially for just a single jet flame torch. There's no punch cutter. There's also no fuel window. So I understand that and wanting to keep the design aesthetic, but bear that in mind. It does have a large fuel tank, so you'll rarely be refilling it unless you're using it constantly. But again, two things to keep in mind. So $175 is a lot to ask for a single jet flame torch lighter. But then again, it's also a SpaceX spaceship torch. And that kind of makes it a one-of-one sort of item. There really isn't much competition if you want a rocket ship to light your cigar with. There are some similar designs on eBay. They go all the way back to the 1960s. But few, if any, that I would call a real competitor to this particular lighter. Now, as mentioned earlier, these have had 2 releases. It's not currently available via SpaceX's store, so you need to find one on the secondary market. Last time I checked eBay, they were starting at $299 and going up from there. So that's a real premium to pay for a lighter. But again, maybe you can catch a third launch if they do one, or maybe it's worth it to you. From a lighter perspective, it certainly does the job. From a design perspective, well, like everything, that's up to you. So once again, that's the SpaceX Starship torch, which you can read more about on halfwheel.com. I'm Patrick Lagreid. Thank you so much for checking out this review. For the latest news about the cigar industry, be sure to check out halfwheel.com.